They're like, we've been talking for weeks, doing the author interviews, and I kept asking people what their recipes are, and I want to make everything now. So the Dragonblade Cookbook came out this week, and some of our authors have contributed family recipes or recipes that are important to them. And so we have Jude Knight, Emily Royal, Lexi Post, and Cerise DeLand here to talk to us about their recipes today. Thanks, ladies, for taking the time to be with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
So, Jude, why don't we start with you? Can you tell us what your recipe is?
I submitted 3 recipes, and they're all from my childhood, although their origins go back probably to the Edwardian era, because the people who gave them to me were of that era, my grandmother and my great aunt. And since I'm 73, we're going back a ways, you know?
Yeah.
So the first one was Mrs. Bowman's Little Buns. And I realized that there was a...
That is the best title ever.
I know.
Sorry, Mrs. Bowman's Little Buns needs to be a short story.
It could be quite a salacious short story when you think about it. Well, the other 2 are Auntie Joyce's apricot slice and Aunt Maud's coconut slice. So you can see there's a kind of a theme running through here. My grandmother named recipes by who she got them from. But I'm reasonably certain it was a thing, because Aunt Maud was on the other side of the family. So yeah, they were things I ate as a child, and then grew up to get the recipes for and made myself. So my children grew up with Mrs. Bowman's Little Buns.
Oh, lovely.
And that they're kind of a cakey.
Are they yeasted, or is it a quick bread?
It's a quick bun. It's not a bun in the way that the US done. I think you might just call them little cakes. I'm not quite sure how to translate that one. It's a cakey mix with mixed fruit. Now, we had great fun translating golden syrup. Hello, Jenna.
Hi.
Golden syrup, I am told, is cane syrup. It's what happens when you boil sugar cane before you actually dry it out and make sugar. You get golden syrup, as we call it here. So I suggested you could use maple syrup or honey if you don't have access to the real thing.
So does it have a taste itself like molasses does, or like maple syrup would, or honey? I was thinking corn syrup is maybe what we would use as a lighter dark corn syrup as a
It's a it has a flavor of its own. We'd use it's really a sugar taste, a pure sugar taste, but with a slight hint of darkness to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So dried out, it becomes brown sugar, and then from that they extract it to make white sugar. So it's basically it's liquid brown sugar.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We have it in the UK, and it's spread on toast. It's gorgeous.
It is, and there's nothing quite like being handed the spoon to lick. You're 5 years old, and grandmother has put the golden syrup in the mix, and you're standing there, and if you get there ahead of your brother, you get it. Which, since he had much longer legs than me, didn't happen often, but boy, it was worth it.
Scrappy and move him out of the way. I'm sorry, go ahead.
He was 3 years older. There was no moving him. Sorry.
Yeah. Wiley is your only chance at that point.
Well, yeah, and you could sometimes distract him by telling him what grandfather was doing in the garden.
So, is the coconut slice a coconut cream?
It's it's desiccated coconut and a biscuit, really a biscuit mix. So there's a lot of crushing biscuits going on in my recipes. 2 of them are based on that, one with apricot and one with coconut, and spread in a sliced tin, and one is cooked and one is just put in the fridge and then iced and cut up. And as I say, memories of childhood.
Yeah,
I love to see them go on and become part of somebody else's childhood.
Yeah, it's a lovely thing. Awesome. Well, why don't we scooch on and see, Emily, what are the recipes that you have in the cookbook?
Yeah, I've got one recipe which is cheese straws. I don't think they date back quite so far as your recipes do, but it's probably in the 1960s. Oh, the thing is, they're so Moorish that I don't make I think my recipe in the book is a single batch, but we normally do a double or triple batch. By the time we pull the second and third batch out of the oven, we've already eaten the first batch. So I have to do a triple batch, but it is turning into a bit of a family tradition now, because my older daughter is away at university, and our youngest child often makes them for her when she goes to stay with her. So now she makes a lot more cheese straws than I do. So yeah, it's just a fairly basic cheese straw recipe with a bit of a kind of twist in that it's either got paprika or chili powder or a bit of mustard in. And it's quite a wet mixture, so it's quite difficult to roll out sometimes, but it's one of those melt in the mouth recipes that it says like keeps for 3 to 5 days in a tin.
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. We don't bother with a tin. We just put it on the rack and just pick it off the rack. But I saw it in when I used to watch a British TV series called The Duchess of Duke Street, which was actually based on a real life lady, Rosa Lewis, who she was the proprietress of a hotel called the Cavendish Hotel, but in the series it was the Bentinck Hotel. And it was all I can remember about this, that the main character is she had this real strong East End accent, but actually the actress has like a serious RP British accent, but she was like such a character. And in one, I think it was the first episode, she made these cheese straws, and it was the thing that the kind of rakish son of the house, because she was below stairs and he was above stairs. I think it was how he first fell in love with her, because he tried her cheese straws and then tried to seduce her, but she was having nothing of it. But I think in the second series they did actually have an affair. But I remember watching her making these cheese straws and thought, oh, we've got a family recipe for that. So it was the first thing I was ever allowed to make without a parent standing over me to make sure I didn't burn myself or cut myself or boil myself or something. Happy memories making them when I was almost too young to read. I think I started making them fairly early.
Well, cheese straws and a glass of wine that's about the best thing ever.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yes.
Awesome. So I'm making my list internally of the rest. I've got my cookbook already, so I'm making my list internally of the things that I want to try. So I'm getting all of these on the list. So Lexi, I'm assuming that yours is something sweet.
Well, yeah, it's ice cream.
I always look for your post every day to see what kind of sweet thing you're having for breakfast and why it's going to be a great day.
Yeah, well, I like to think positively,
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have to say that my recipe is Parmesan ice cream.
Oh my!
It is not a family recipe. I can't cook. My mother can't cook. My grandmother couldn't cook. However, I can make ice cream, and I've been making it every weekend for 12 years now, because one thing we are genetically disposed to is ice cream, all of us. So when I moved,
a genetic predisposition to ice cream, I want one of those.
Maybe a blood transfusion. So what happened is, I'm very addicted to ice cream, and I moved to a Caribbean island. And what I discovered was that the ice cream would melt, refreeze before you actually bought it from the grocery store, because it came in on cargo ships, and then it sat on the dock, and then it got to the grocery store. And you would see, it was really, because islands are laid back. So you'd walk in the grocery store and you go down the ice cream aisle and you see these tubs of ice cream sitting in the middle of the aisle waiting to be put in the fridge, but it was break time. So they just left them in the middle of the aisle, and then they put them in the freezer, and it tasted like sand. That's what happens to ice cream. Tastes like sand. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to do something if I'm going to live on this island because I need my ice cream. And there were 2 hardware stores because Home Depot hadn't come in yet. And we were in there. It was around Christmas time, and they had a Cuisinart ice cream maker for sale. So I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to make my own ice cream. I got to figure this out. So when I make ice cream, I still don't cook. I haven't used a stove in over a decade because you really don't want me to. You know what? You understand, right?
I do.
Yeah, Cerise does. So I experiment in order to make the flavors I'm looking for. And when I started writing Regency for Dragonblade, and I learned that one of the most popular flavors was Parmesan ice cream. Now, I've made mascarpone and I've made cheesecake, but I, thought of Parmesan ice cream, like, are these people crazy?
Yeah.
So I said, well, for the cookbook, let's give it a shot. So I experimented, had a couple different batches, and finally got it. And I have to tell you, it is addictive. I was shocked how I couldn't stop eating Parmesan ice cream. It's got that salty, sweet thing going for it. And you use fresh Parmesan. You grate fresh, not the stuff you put on your spaghetti, but the actual fresh Parmesan. Right. And back then, they used to they would get all the chunks out. Like they made a lot of savory ice creams, but they would make sure that they put it through a sieve and that all the chunks would kind of be smooth ice cream. I left my chunks in. Oh my gosh, that's even better.
You get like little bits of frozen cheese, like that little salty little bits.
So a little burst of just, I got to tell you, even when I told my readers, I said, I'm making Parmesan, they're like, oh, I'm like, no, really, it's addictive. I got to tell you, it's really, really good.
Yeah, I can believe that. I love sugared bacon.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of and maple bacon donuts.
Salted caramel.
Sweet thing. Yeah, yes. Salted caramel. Yeah. So I can see how Parmesan ice cream would be delightful.
Yeah.
Oh, addictive.
Awesome. Therese, what about you? What's yours?
Well, now I think I'm making Parmesan ice cream. So.
Yep, me too.
Yeah, I do have an old family recipe that is very, very simple to make. It's what is it? It's shortbread. I'm stuck on Parmesan. It's shortbread cookies, and it takes very few ingredients, and everybody, even a 2-year-old, can get into it and and stir it up and have a good time. And you do have to put it in the refrigerator overnight so it kind of solidifies and packs.
So a little planning ahead of time.
Yeah, so if you cook it, if you decide that you're going to put it in the oven right away, it should no work because it kind of melts. So this is a recipe from my great aunt Anne, who came from a town in Yorkshire called Bradford with her older sister. All the sisters in this family, the Curtis Fletcher family, emigrated to the United States at during different years. And my Aunt Anne came when she was 5 with one of her older sisters. And my grandmother was already here. But this recipe is very dear to my heart because my mother, like Lexi's family, was not a good cook. And this is a recipe that's simple. I was telling everybody before we started, my mother sent up 2 kitchen cabinets in her lifetime in flames because she believed that the way one cooked was to fry everything. She did occasionally make soup. And she did roast a turkey now and then, but she was not. Yeah, so we're here with the shortbread recipe, and it's good. It's fun to make. They come out as little cookies, and wow, is shortbread expensive in the grocery store? Mm-hmm. So So this is kind of a fun thing to make, and I was pleased to add it. So my story, my family story about this shortbread, not including my mother, is in the is in the book, and so I was pleased to add it.
Awesome. I love shortbread. I tried to make it for a hostess gift ages ago when I first moved to Virginia by myself. A girlfriend invited me to her house because I didn't have any family nearby at the holidays, and I thought, well, I'll take shortbread cookies, and I made them 3 times, and every time it turned into like a molten lava mess thing, and it wasn't until I had run completely out of time that I realized that I'd been using powdered sugar instead of flour. To make the cookies. And so I put them in. They'd look perfect. They'd feel perfect. I put them in the oven and they go,
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I don't know if you've been watching Lessons in Chemistry.
Oh no, I haven't had a chance to see it
Apple
on
TV, but it's really enjoyable. I took a couple of chemistry courses in high school, so I sit there and I go, yes, absolutely, she's right. So yeah, cooking is chemistry. Yeah, sometimes confectioner sugar, wrong.
Just doesn't have the structure that flour does.
Exactly.
So Jenna, what about you? What's your recipe that's in cookbook?
Mine is a savory. Well, it's dressing, not stuffing, but actual dressing, and it comes from my. I'm sorry.
Tell me the difference between dressing and stuffing.
Yeah.
Stuffing, you actually stuff and cook in the bird. This is made outside the bird and cooked in actually little cakes of dressing.
Oh, that sounds delightful.
Yeah.
I would have those all the time.
It's the dressing I grew up with. So when people had something that looked different, I was like, "What is that?" Because this is the only dressing that I had ever encountered until I went off to college and encountered other people. But and it was always a big production. My mother only made it. It was my grandmother on my father's side recipe, and comes from sometime in the early 20th century. I'm assuming what I was told was she and my grandfather eloped and then went to live with one of his cousins or aunts. And my grandmother got this recipe from that aunt. And so it goes back probably into the 1800s because they were married in like 1906, something like that. And it was always a production at Thanksgiving. It always came only at Thanksgiving. And so my mother would make it over 2 days. She would make the cornbread. It's because it's a cornbread base. And you add poultry seasoning and sage to the cornbread meal. And then you add the eggs and celery, diced up celery and diced up onions. And you cook that so it's a savory cornbread. And then she would just do that the first day. And then the next day she would let it rest. And then the next day she would crumble it up and add water from the turkey and form that into little cakes and put that in the oven. And she had to make a big batch because I was all over it. It was like one of my favorite things to eat at Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So, and I will start to make mine tomorrow. Actually,
I can totally imagine getting my own little personal bowl of gravy and a little cornbread stuffing cake and dipping because
Yeah. Although it's kind of moist, it will break apart. I mean, it's good, but it will break apart. It's not like a stiff type of cornbread. It's because it's got a lot of moisture in it from the turkey.
Does it freeze?
I don't know. It's never stuck around my house.
I'm thinking we could freeze these little.
I never have milk.
Then we could have them all year long. We could just defrost them when we wanted them.
Well, this is true. I should try that. And now I've had to make accommodations because of my gluten intolerance. So I can't use because it actually the second day you add like a stuffing mix like a Pepperidge Farm stuffing mix or something. So now I have to use like either if I can find a gluten-free dressing mix, I can add that or just do stale bread. So I have to accommodate. But other than that, it still doesn't stop me from making it.
No doubt. No doubt. Well, there are all of these recipes, and then I know that there are lots of other ones in the cookbook. I remember Chastity has an apple stack cake that I want to try. They're just there are tons of recipes, so you want to make sure you get your cookbook and try all of these. I was thinking, Jude, when you were talking about the way your family's recipes were named, do you all have recipe cards? Like my grandma and my grandaunts would handwrite recipe cards, and so I've got cards with their handwriting on, and it's just the nicest thing every holiday to get out and flip through the paper cards and see my grandma's handwriting, or my Aunt Mary's cheesecake recipe in her handwriting. And I'm wondering if everybody else has something like that. That's it.
I do, and they're pristine. I've never used them, so they're I've got great samples of handwriting.
Mm-hmm.
So my family were obvious. I'm not sure whether they were meaner or more economical, but I was given a ring binder recipe book with blank pages and a pen.
Wow.
Until the coffee.
Which I still have, by the way, and all of the recipes those 3 recipes came out of that ring binder. But, because I mention in the book the New Zealand tradition of ladies a plate, invitations. Invitations would come out saying for the vestry supper or the Sunday school lunch or whatever, and it would say Bob and Judy are invited to such and such, ladies a plate. And there's many a story told of immigrants to New Zealand who took along a plate. But it was meant to be a plate of food to share.
Yeah.
So since a lot of these were morning teas, we were, not so much now, but we were a nation of biscuit, which you would call cookie, and other sweet treats makers.
Big fan of the sweet treats.
Yeah, I need to come visit.
What about you, Emily? Do you have any family recipes written down, or any traditions that way?
I've got a bit like Jude, is that I was given a hardback notebook and a pen, so I've copied a lot of recipes. But I have got some old like Good Housekeeping books from the 1950s with mostly black and white. Well, mostly no photographs, a few black and white photographs, and the occasional color photograph in the middle of the book. And the binding is all falling to bits, these old books, but then kind of sandwiched in between random pages is just random bits of paper with random handwriting, which I think some of it might be my mum's, some of it might be my dad's, heaven knows who the rest of it is. And actually when I married, my mother-in-law had one, and it was exactly the same. And we've got random bits of paper or like random cuttings from Good Housekeeping magazine or something, and it's pictures of 1950s women in pretty pennies going, look at this, it's great, I've got this wonderful new pressure cooker, isn't it fantastic, and all that kind of stuff. So it's a real trip down memory lane when I flick through it. Yeah.
We had my grandmother's handed down, like their church would do a cookbook every year or every couple of years. And so I had a whole big stack of all these little spiral bound things, that were, 100 deviled egg recipes or Jello salads and things. And then when I moved to the South, at church suppers here, they do pimento cheese, and so you get to work your way around the table and taste everybody's pimento cheese sandwiches, which was something I did not know that I loved until I moved here, and I love it. So, and if you love a cheese straw, you will love pimento cheese as well, I think. So, Reese, what about you?
That reminded me, Emily, that is my book, complete with scraps of paper.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, I have a cookbook that my mother wrote in, and it's kind of amusing because she'll go through and she'll cross out a recipe and she'll write across the top, no good.
Set the kitchen on fire with this one. And
So, given her tendency not to do well with a lot of things, I take her word for it. It's no good. We don't try
Just
that.
moving on.
Yeah, right, exactly. But this recipe is on a card, like many people's, and I too have scraps of paper and things that have been torn out of newspapers and magazines, and of course the dates are interesting. And you're right, you've got this woman, 1930s style in her pinafore apron, or on the back there's an advert for baking powder. It's
revolutionary.
interesting. Yeah.
I always think, because we are literally in the business of love, I think food is one of the ways we love each other. And it's one of the ways we take care of each other. It's one of the ways we take care of our children and our found family, in addition to our regular family. And I love the idea of getting together and sharing those touchstone moments, those things that you remember, including trying to beat your brother to the bowl to get the golden syrup spoon.
It's how I enticed my eldest, who's at university, and she's loving it there. She loves staying away from home. So I'm like more traumatized with her leaving home than she is. But I can entice her back with fish pie, because that's her all-time favorite dish. If I just say it's fish pie, then she'll come home.
You could entice me back with fish pie too.
Yeah.
Well, ladies, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us today. I appreciate it. I'm hoping that for those of you who are in the States are watching this when you're getting ready for your Thanksgiving dinners, and for those of you who are watching it from other places are sharing food with your loved ones too, and that you will find new family traditions to start with the cookbooks or with the recipes in the cookbook.
Thank you.
It's been a delight to talk to you. I really appreciate you all taking the time.
Great fun. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Oh, and I have to remember to say, because I asked ahead of time, the cookbook will be out in paper. It'll be out in paperback. It may take a day or two, but by the time this airs, hopefully it will be available. If not, it will be available very shortly thereafter. So.
Yeah, my husband's been asking for the print version.
Yeah. Well, there's something about being able to spread it open and make notes, because you can't
Yes.
you can't cross things out on your Kindle.
And
So.
stuff other things in it. Yes.
Yes.
Yep. Scraps of paper. We need places to put our scraps of paper.
We have to have places with scraps of paper.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, ladies, and happy holidays to
you.
those of you in the States, and enjoy the rest of your week for everybody else.
Thank you.
Yep. Happy holidays.
Bye.
Bye.